I'm Susan Eernisse, and came here from Georgia, Carrollton, Georgia, and I've been doing this so long. I started doing children's choirs when I was 17 years old. How many of you are lifetime choir? Yeah. You know, it just, once it gets hold, it's hard for it to let go. I have a friend, and she told me recently, she said, I retired from children's choir teaching at church. I said, you did? Well, how long have you been doing it? She said, 5 years. I went, she really wasn't one, was she? She really wasn't one, because she got quit after 5 years. But I have the deepest respect for each of you and what you do, because it's so important. And you think it's important, or you wouldn't be here. And I think that says so much for what we do and why we do it. None of us are wealthy, or at least I'm not. I won't from doing this kind of work, but it's just, we're so rich in other ways. My husband and I were driving across campus and looking at these gorgeous buildings, and I said, what would it be like to have, just drop $1 million and say, here, go build a building. He said, I don't know, and I don't think we ever will. So, you know, it is what it is, but today's session is kind of a hodgepodge, it's a potpourri of different things, and I've called it Scriptures, Hymns, and Lots of M's. And the M's all started a few years ago with a hymn memory program. How many of you have hymn memory programs? And maybe it involves M&Ms. Steve, you use the M&Ms, and that was kind of where I started with the M's. Was we did hymns and M&Ms. Other people say that a different way, but that was mine because I just like to say hymns and M&Ms. And each year we would put together a hymn and M&M-nal. So we had a hymn and M&M-nal to take home. Okay, so we sort of outgrew that after a while because they didn't always make it home. So I had to find some other ways to do it. We still stuck with the M&Ms a while. And the way I worked my program was we would have one hymn of the month, and they memorized only the first stanza, because in a month's time you only see them 4 times. And if you get them to memorize one, that's one more than they knew. So they memorized the one stanza, and if they could say it or sing it, and you do know it's harder to say than sing, and they quickly learn that, so they mostly want to sing it for you, they would get a small bag of M&Ms. Then at the end of the year, at the end of your program, if they had memorized all of them, we didn't give them a hymnal, we gave them a great big bag of M&Ms, which is a lot cheaper than hymnal. I also let them choose if they, not all children like M&Ms, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they could pick the kind of M&M they wanted, or they could have Skittles, and the kind of Skittles you wanted, because you know there's like 12 kinds of Skittles. So I'd go shopping and find all those different bags of all those different flavors, because I thought they had earned it. And so it was a great thing. And my thought on that was, if they learn one hymn out of that whole year, that hymn's going to live with them the rest of their lives. And I think that's so important. So very careful which hymns I picked, you know, so that they would stick with them and be meaningful to them. Well, along came Growing in Grace, and they started putting hymns in the curriculum, which was greatly helpful. I don't always use their hymns. Sometimes I substitute, because we all sort of have our hymn language for each church, and I insert old ones and new ones, but it's always going to be something that we actually use in church. And several of the hymns we've memorized in children's choir, we have taught to the congregation. So the children are learning them first, and then in turn teaching the congregation. So if you haven't figured out by now, I think hymns are really important. Nothing wrong with the new choruses, nothing against that, but boom, you hear it once and you got it. The hymns have our theology, our doctrine, our faith embedded in the text of those hymns. We always have this issue about, do we teach young children certain hymns because of the figurative language that's in so many of the hymns? And my philosophy on that is teach them the words and just enough understanding that they can get it. And as they grow, they'll grow into the understanding. Don't wait till they're 12 to start teaching them. or the beauty of the earth, or what's the one that's this fall? It's not Come Thou Fount. What's the one that is this fall? I can't remember. Come Thou Fount is something? That's one that, if you wait till they're old enough to understand it, they'll be 40 years old. So you have to teach it, and it's like the Bible. We don't not teach the Bible, right? We start with little pieces of Scripture, and then we add longer, but we put it in their heads and put it later, it becomes in their hearts when they begin to understand it. God reveals himself to us as in the way that we can understand it. So when I was 10 years old and accepted Christ, I had a total different understanding of what God was and what church was and what faith was. And I'm sure you're the same way. So hymns are the same way. They're going to grow into that. Let's look at your handout, and because otherwise I will jump all over the place. And I did want to address the hymns. One of the things, instead of the hymn and hymnal, I started doing, and this just kind of grew into itself, was a hymn memory card. And this was, Now Thank We All Are God, Heart of Hands and Voices. So this was a Garden and Grace theme hymn 2 years ago, the second year, Hearts and Hands and Voices. And it has our hymnal with the M&Ms on it. But I would give the kids this at the beginning of the month. And I said, put it somewhere where you'll see it. My favorite place to put things is on the bathroom mirror. I said, then you can read it and brush your teeth. So two things are happening. They actually brush their teeth longer, okay? And they're memorizing the hymn, right? Or, by their nightstand, right next to their bed at night. But a lot of them punched a hole in it and hung it on their book bag. Now, what did I love about that was they were carting this around with them at school all day. And other kids were seeing it, and what's that? And so they'd tell them about that, and they're like, you can come to children's choir and you can get M&Ms if you memorize this. So, little free advertisement for a children's choir plus the hymn. But these are really neat. It was a little bit of trouble, but now they're saved. I also do some scripture memory and have scripture cards do the same way. It's worth the cost of laminating. They cart these things around with them. And I'll have them come to me and say, you haven't given us our scripture card for this month. And I'll say, that's because I haven't done it. They really keep you honest. But these are really, really a cool thing to do. And I just sort of made myself a template, and then I would just have to exchange the words so they all look the same and change the month on it. It's a really kind of neat thing to do. I'm sure you have other things that you do for that. Yesterday I talked about in the bag, the activities in the bag. And one of the activities I said was, you could do your hymn activities, hymn memory activities, as in small groups. And so I've got it on the floor. I'm going to show you a couple of things we do with this. But this was with a Worship the King, and it had in it the instructions for all the activities that go with it, all the items you needed, including the hymn sheets with the words. And this was a Growing in Grace hymn, so they actually had the sheet for you, okay? So we printed those, otherwise I would make my own. And then there's your instructions, and I put pictures for these cards and how to lay them out. I wonder if I did it the way I did it. Yes, I did it right. How to lay them out for my helper so that she would know. And then, so all that was in the envelope, or in the bag. Hello, it's called bag. Okay, so instead of just, memorize the hymn, sing the hymn, memorize the hymn, boom, we're over, I like to engage the children with the hymns throughout the month. So each week they might go through one of their small groups. It will be something to do with the hymn. Okay? So this one is a boom whacker play along. Okay? And let's have some volunteers to come do that. I only need 6 people. And if you can whack on each leg, you can do 2. So 6 people. Quick. I put the octavator caps on this morning, so we're going to play down the octave, and it just gets a little more volume. You can hit it on your hand, and what you're going to do, I know it's rude, we're going to have our backs to them. I should have faced the other way, so grab one. Got a couple more people that will come play, so fill out the chords. One, good. All right, what you need to do is look for your color there so you know what letter. So you are C and and you don't have to worry about where it is. Another thing you can do is stick them on a poster or stick them on magnets. I'm going to leave this on the floor. You can come by later and look. You'll notice that I just love color coding, but it had to change chords here on the third beat, so we cut off a piece of that color so the kids can just play by color if they need to. And I have the time signature, and what the rest of you need to do is sing with us. Oh, worship with me. And now, just because it's early, I'm going to give this a starting pitch. Okay? I could have had you do that. How did you do that? So, we're going to go 1, 2. And let's play them on those for the whackers, okay? All right, so ready? 1, 2.
Oh, worship the King, all glorious above, and gratefully sing His power and His love, our shield and defender, the ancient of days, our brilliant in splendor, and girded with praise.
Isn't that cool? And we also do it with hand chimes, which is better. It sounds better. But you could actually have the kids play that in church and accompany the congregation. Boom whackers in worship. We like that. Okay. Very simple. Y'all can just stop messing with it. So that works as a small group activity, and you can play it 40 different times because then they can swap and play it differently. They have to figure out where does their chord, their note appear in the chord, which is a skill unto itself. And I somehow in the lesson at some point I circled common pitches. So we learned a little lesson about, that one chord and that fourth chord have a common tone, it's G. Okay, which is a kind of a neat thing to do. But you don't have to have a great amount of musical skill to do that other than just keep the beat. So your less able volunteers are comfortable with this kind of activity. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, y'all are so awake. All right. Then I have the other thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, this was the picture cards. And I have like 4 sets of identical cards. I really stole this idea from Terry Taylor, but I did my own art. And I may even have these somewhere saved if you're interested in those. Send an email, I'll send them to you. But he did I think it was an old dot music sheet or something with this hymn. And so I took some of his ideas, but we have a picture to represent. So we have, oh, worship the King, so we have the crown, all glorious above, stars, and we have different words depending on which version of the hymnal. And I actually had to change it because we had Celebrating Grace hymnal now, and it was different from our Old Baptist hymnal. So we had to change that, but the heart is still there, the love's still there. Our shield and defender, the ancient of days. But the 10 Commandments, I thought, is a neat thing for the ancient days. And have a little discussion about God being the great I am, that He was the I am of all time. We talk a lot about pavilion because pavilion, they don't even know what a pavilion is, much less the meaning, the figurative meaning of that. So the pavilion in splendor and they absolutely love this one. And the idea about girded, we talk about how they in the Bible, they would gird up their loins and run, So, neat little thing is so you have little competitions, divide them up into groups, and mix up the cards, and say which group can do it the fastest, or time them to see. But those are great fun. And the pictures, they'll always remember. And then you can actually put the pictures up on the wall. It's just a memory prompt without having the words there, and it'll aid them. So hymns are so very important, at least in my little world. Another thing that's important is scripture, but I'm going to talk about that in the context of this other thing. So we're talking about lots of M's. Several years ago, we had great concern about the sixth graders in our church. Because sixth graders had been bumped over to the youth department. That happened because of the schools, right? Sixth graders got thrown out of elementary school. Nobody wants sixth graders. Nobody wants sixth graders. You know, I had this great, back in the day, sixth grade was in elementary school, and I had the fondest memories of being a sixth grader in elementary school and being like a senior and feeling so good about myself. And then ninth grade was in junior high, and ninth grade was such a fantastic year for me. But now they're in different places. But sixth grade got bumped over there, and we all know that sixth graders are not 10th graders. They're not 8th graders. They're totally on a different plane. They still are children. They don't want to be. They don't always take to that, but they really are still, they have hearts of children. So we were in just a dilemma about what to do about that, because honestly, the sixth graders were ruining the youth department, because the older kids were like, I'm not coming to be with those children, because they were obnoxious, you know. Why? Because they're sixth graders. They acted like sixth graders. So what do we do about that? So it's just, when you have a staff that works together and works for the good of the people they serve, it is such a blessing. And so our youth minister and our children's minister came to the decision that sixth grade needed to be reclaimed into the children's department, and then by doing that, we would create a little bubble there where the two ministers worked together with that group of children. So they got some extra special things that the children didn't get, but still weren't in the youth department. It was just a beautiful thing. The next thing was to sell it to the parents, okay? Because they're like, my child has been waiting all this time to go to, you know, whatever. Our children's minister sold it to the parents. You had a parents' meeting for the rising sixth graders and said, we're going to keep them in the children's department, and here's what we're going to do. And about 98% were totally on board, and the other 2% were kind of like, I don't know how it's going to work. But eventually they came around to see this is the best thing for the kids. So we created a tweens kind of thing, still housed under children's ministry, and we put 5th and 6th grade together in that bubble and called it the 56ers. And the 56ers would do field trips together, they would do ministry projects together, they had their own Sunday evening Bible study. The girls were led by the children's minister, because she's a she, and the boys were led by the youth minister, because he's a he, and it just worked out so beautifully. And now they look forward to going to 56ers, and some of them, once they leave 56ers and go to youth, want to go back to 56ers. So it's a really popular thing, and everybody wants to do that. So in the process of doing all that, then I got excited and said, okay, let's revision Wednesday night. Okay, Baptist church, typical traditional Wednesday night Baptist program with missions and music. Well, missions, okay, music was going well. Okay, music was going well. Missions, not so much. Had a lot of problems, especially with getting workers who would actually teach them and not play football. Anybody have that problem? Okay. So we wanted something a whole lot more meaningful, plus just the kids were just running wild, and then they would come to music and drive us crazy. So let's revision that. So I borrowed the idea of the worship arts model. It's not truly, if you have a worship arts model, or if you know someone that has, it's not truly, we don't do tracks where they choose tracks to follow. We do rotations where they are told what to do. Okay, so for the older ones, there's a little element of choice, but the rest of them not. So we came up with WHAM 3. And the 3 is missions, music, and ministry. Because we came up with this, the idea, what is it that we want on Wednesday nights? Well, we definitely want music. We want to keep music, because that's the big part. That's the big W in worship, right? In a lot of cases. We still wanted missions, but we wanted active missions. We wanted hands-on missions. We wanted them to do mission projects, plus do some missions education, which has been lost to a great degree in our churches. And then ministry was just sort of the umbrella that housed everything else we did. We had that. We came up with a thin verse. Did I put that in there? I put it at the top. The verse is Colossians 3:23. So the first verse we memorized that year was Colossians 3:23, and it goes, Colossians 3:23. Colossians 3:23. Whatever your task, put yourself into it as done for the Lord and not for your masters. Colossians 3:23. Colossians 3:23. And if I just go Colossians 3:23, I know what to do. First kindergarten on up, I know what to do. And it's scripture memory became a big old part of WAM 3. Well, we end up, we had then, how do we format that? We decided preschool would stay preschool. We had mission friends and music friends, and we would leave that alone because that was successful. Preschoolers don't complain, they just go and do, right? So we picked up at kindergarten and went through 6th grade. And we don't have fixed numbers for our divisions. We don't have fixed grades for our divisions. We gauge the groupings by the bubbles. So we had a great big group of 5th graders that year we started, and we had a great big group of, I want to say 2nd graders. So where we divided it, so it would not be a great big group and a little bitty group, is how we split it. So it might vary from every 2 years, that might change. So we had our kindergarten through 2nd graders, became celebration. I mentioned this at lunch yesterday. Lost the word choir, we don't use the word choir. So celebration, and then we had 3rd and 4th grade was jubilation, and 5th and 6th grade, on other nights they're 56ers, but on Wednesday night they're exaltation. So we began to introduce that language too, which is worship language, and they began to identify with that. They had shirts that were color-coded to their group. The 56ers, that exaltation group, had tie-dyed because they were such a unique group. But then the other 2 groups had a specific color. So whenever we did pictures, you could easily find your child in the picture about what color shirt they were wearing. We also had to have a mascot, and so Whammel came into being. This is Whammel, the WAM 3 camel. And this happened because of the whole hump day idea. So we started putting on Facebook for parents, and the parents would show the kids, and then some of the older kids do, Instagram, thank you, I'm having a brain thing this morning. Instagram, so we put things on Instagram for the, like 6th graders, and they'll have that on theirs. We talked about hump day. Instead of hump day, it was WAM 3 day, and the kids would get excited and say, Miss Jennifer, you know what day it is? And she'd say, what? It's WAM 3 day! And so a lot of enthusiasm that first year. Well, Whammel became a celebrity, and sometimes he would wear the shirt color of one group, and if they were, if it was your group's color night, then you got to cart Whammel around with you through the rotations with your group. And even the 5th and 6th graders liked that, believe it or not. Well, that wasn't enough. We bought Whamelda, and Whamelda is about this big. She looks about like this one, but and Whamelda is his niece. We weren't going to have any of this marrying business, so this the male and then the niece. Okay, so no relationship issues there. But Whamelda was sort of a sneaky little girl, and we would hide her on Wednesday night. And they had to look for Whamelda. As they went through their rotations, they were on the lookout for Whamelda. And when we would gather for our closing together time, she would have a slide. Jennifer, children's minister, brilliant. She would have the slide, and before she'd click it on, she'd say, "Where's Whamelda?" And I know, they'd tell us, and she'd click on the slide and show where Whamelda was in the church. But just creating a sense of community and some enthusiasm. And this week, Whammel has been traveling with me, and I took him in the hotel the other night. I took pictures of him, and I've been sending back pictures. He's been on Facebook numerous times this week, and all my adult friends are like, "Where is he now?" You know, why aren't you posting more pictures of? Well, he got left in the room, so I'm like, if somebody steals Whammel, I am in so much trouble. I will be having to go online and find Whammel. Well, one more thing before I go on from that, because I'm going to tell you about the rotations, is that we're changing the name of it. Kids don't know it yet, but we're changing the name because this has become a little bit bigger than we are, and we have churches calling us, wanting to buy our stuff. Well, we can't really buy it because it's kind of in our heads, you know. But we have mentored some churches into changing their program. And so WHAM, actually I think Kathy Hill started WHAM, pretty sure, coined that worship arts ministry. So we didn't want to use that, so we're changing it to CAM3. Which is a pretty cool thing because we have a 6th grader this year named Cam. And he's the only child that knows about this, but he's going to be our poster child for CAM3. And we're going to do some art with Cam in it. But the new meaning, and I love this, is children active in music, missions, and ministry. That's the CAM. So we get to keep the 3. And of course, the camels get to have a name change. So this is Camo. Oh, you didn't know. This is going to be Camo, and Wemelda will now be Camille. So we still get to keep the camels. But a lot of fun and kind of silliness to go with that. But what's happened is it's put energy into something that was not energetic. Trying to have energy, and some of you deal with this, where you're being as energetic and putting all your heart and soul into doing music, and they're coming to you either bored or so energized you can't calm them down. So it took some no giving up. So you had to give up some things. Okay, no longer do I have a whole block that's dedicated just to music. I had to give that up in a certain way. I'll tell you how that works. But we have a rotation. I'll leave the chart up here. If you want any of these charts, this one was a 2-week chart. Most of them last for 6 to 8 weeks. But it's divided into the columns for the age groups. So it's celebration, jubilation, and exaltation. There are 25-minute periods. We start at 5:30, we go to 7 o'clock. And we have 25-minute periods beginning at 5:30. And so celebration would begin in music. And when it says music, that's choir time. Okay, that's learning the music. It's not doing music activities. It is actually doing the songs. Okay, and then they go from there to missions. And in the spring, I think they were doing a missions activity. And then at 6:20, that group went to art, and we have 2 art teachers in our church, and one in particular volunteers her time, and she said, "Can I please do WHAM 3 next year?" We're like, "Oh yes, you can." She loves working with those younger children particularly. So during the year, what else did they do? Well, they also did a music rotation. Okay, so they might do, we called it music action, where they would do like organ instruments or hand chimes or something. So they still are doing the music concepts. The jubilation group, 3rd and 4th grade, this is like ending the year, their first rotation was Bible drill. So they had 25 minutes of Bible drill. And sort of done the traditional, if you know how Bible drill's done, sort of done with that, but obviously not as in detail. And then they had art for the 2nd rotation, and then they came to music with me. And then the 3rd rotation was 5th and 6th grade, exaltation. And they were divided into 2 groups because they were such large groups. So half of them did handbells with my husband, and I would go in there and help him. And then the other part did art with the other Miss Susan. They went from handbells and art to music with me, and then they did Bible drill. So those were their 3 rotations. The final 15 minutes of the night is devoted to Together Time, which is a beautiful time where we have kindergarten through 6th grade piled in together in the children's church room, and we do devotions and scripture memory and things like that. But it sounds really confusing, but it's not. So throughout the year, they may do art, they do some mission projects. We still do the derby cars. Do y'all do derby cars? Remember that? We do that with boys and girls. I mean, throughout the RAs, it's just us doing them. It's not RA. But the men, the dads get in on that, and we make the cars at church. Instead of sending them home to do the projects, we make the cars at church. So that's one of the rotations, which moms love because then they don't have to deal with the paint at home. So there it is. That final 15 minutes, we have done so many different things. I think I listed some of those over on, under sources and resources at the end. For devotionals, we use some of the Growing in Grace devotionals. You know, those are a free download. You know, you can go to Growing Grace site and you order it and be downloaded, and it costs nothing. And you do not have to buy the curriculum in order to get those. The only thing is, the ones now are tied to the songs, so it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you can still use them without the songs. The Chorister has devotionals. We use some of those. Then there's Chuck Knows Church. How many of you know Chuck Knows Church? Yes. Chuck Knows Church, he has numerous little videos on different topics. We used him during Lent, okay? And he just, what is it, maybe 5 minutes at the most, something like that, little video clips. And he's, I think he's a Methodist minister, if I'm not mistaken. And he talks with humor and just kind of in a childlike way, but adults love it too. But he would talk about what is Palm Sunday and what is Holy Week and what is Easter. And so each of the weeks leading up through Lent, we would use him. So part of the devotional time would be Chuck Knows Church. 2 years ago, our theme through the year was the fruit of the Spirit, and we used these Farmer Fred videos. Anybody found Farmer Fred? I don't know who this guy is. I think he's either a children's minister or a youth minister, and these are self-made videos. They're the funniest thing ever. And he has one on the fruit of the Spirit. There's one for each of the fruits of the Spirit. So you Google or find YouTube videos and just put Farmer Fred, fruit of the Spirit, and see if you get there. But he would make up a song every week, and it was horrible. It was just like, he said, "Oh, you can make a song out of anything," you know. And he starts singing, peace, peace, whatever, you know, gratefulness, or goodness, or whatever. And the kids are going, "Oh no!" But then they say, "Play it again." We loved Farmer Fred, so highly recommend Farmer Fred. And then we go back and we review all the scriptures that we've learned all the way through. At the end of the year, I gave the 6th graders, when they graduated, a book of all the scriptures we memorized that they had memorized from the time the program started, just so they'd have it, and it had the music notations, so they could do it in rhythm. Almost all the scriptures have some sort of rhythmic component, whether it's body percussion or instruments to go with it, which helps them memorize the scriptures. So, that same closing time is also when we have some sort of closing song, our going away song. It might be As We Go, or some other child-like song that we all sing together, and we have a closing prayer. And it gives our children's minister a time to be with every one of those kids that sometimes she doesn't get to work with because she's having to do other things. Particularly the middle kids, like the 3rd and 4th grade, because they have aged out of children's church. She doesn't teach them in Sunday school, obviously, and 56ers get her for special time. So it gives her time really to work with those 3rd and 4th graders. It's just a really great thing. And the thing that makes it work is the teamwork of the adults and the willingness to give a little bit. And what does that do to my choir time? And you're thinking, 25 minutes. Let me tell you, you don't waste a minute. And then walk in the door and you go. And if you think about 45 minutes is what I used to have, there was a lot of time that I was kind of filling, you know, or, you know, taking it easy because I got plenty of time. Don't do that anymore. The time they walk into the door to the time I send them out the door, we are doing music. And they don't get bored. They don't have time to get bored. And we still can do some of the fun things. They come in, we do a warm-up song that relates to what we're doing. I don't pressure them to sing many anthems. We don't do musicals in the church year. We're doing a musical next summer. We do that in the summertime, a condensed kind of week of doing that. It's more about what the children need than what the congregation wants. If that makes sense. But they still do sing in church. In the fall, we have to do I get to do Hanging in the Green service. We sing in that. We have a Christmas program, a Lamb 3 Christmas program that we present on a Wednesday night. Plus, we sing at least once, each group once in the fall, standalone on Sunday morning. That, if you think about that, that's a lot of music in about, 14 weeks of time that just flies. It's Christmas before you know it. So it's been a really good thing. And why I'm telling you this is not to say you ought to do what we're doing. That's not what I'm telling you. But what I'm telling you is sometimes it pays to revision and every year reassess. How did this go? And are we hanging on to something we need to let go of? And are we missing something we need to keep, that we need to put into our program? And I think that's the key. And what is it that your particular kids are missing? And what our kids were missing was missions and scripture. And we wanted to add art. Those were the things we were missing. By the way, the art projects, almost every one of them, they're not take-home, stick on the refrigerator art. They are projects that we create something to put into nursing homes or retirement centers. They have worked on items to go with welcome bags for visitors. They're things that they don't keep, they're giving away these things. Another thing we did was a missions month in our church. We do that every January, but we expanded that this year because we had a grant that our church had earned, and so we did a big, huge missions thing. So in art, they did, each age group did different projects. This was, they painted on that craft paper and made little simple, like African art. And they made cards to sell at the missions fair that we had. And this was just weaving as paper, but it looks really pretty. And they made cards. And this was 3rd and 4th grade. And then the kindergarten and 2nd graders, there were, what do you call those, silhouettes? And then they added color. They colored on with, I want to think that's pastel, you know. And then we had somebody photograph those and make cards to sell at mission fair. All the money went to a little school over in Balama in Liberia that we partnered with. And we had, for that entire month, we had the head of that school was in the U.S. and came and was taught the children the missions time. Here's some Christmas cards that we made with our kids. But, blah, blah, blah. If you can tell, I'm really excited about Wayne 3, because of what, not because it was done for me. Like I said, I had to give some things up. Another thing, though, it did is I got to do 2 choirs. The hardest spots to fill are the directors, right? The music directors. And so, by the rotations, we never have 2 choirs meeting at the same time, so I actually could do 2 choirs. And you're thinking, and why is that a good thing? But it was a great thing because then I did 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 6th. So sometimes they sang together. So I would work on the same music together, and when we would need to rehearse, we'd do a flip, and I'd have them all at the same time. So that was kind of a neat little process. Another time we sang 3rd, 4th, sang with kindergarten through 2nd, because that director wanted a little bit of maturity added to her group. And so we did a flip so we could meet at the same time. You only need 1 accompanist. So we used the church pianist. She has to be there. So, you know, she has to be there. She's going to be there for choir anyway. But she gets that 15-minute break, that closing time. She has a break before she has to do adult choir. So there were a lot of little benefits. Also, a children's minister got to do a rotation. She could do one of the Bible drills. It helped fill it out. The biggest volunteer spot we needed was every group had to have like a mama or a daddy that went with them everywhere. Had to have somebody that knew who was in that group. And all they did, walk them around, stay in the room, keep them on task, make sure if they went to the bathroom, they didn't stay, those kinds of things. They had no preparation. Well, the first year, like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. Well, by the end of the semester, they were like, this is the easiest job I've ever had in church, because it was no preparation. You know, you just show up, and you get your list of kids, you know, and you check off roll, and then you keep up with them. So that is a very important person. So the first thing we do is we fill out the music people. Then we get the team leaders for each of those groups. Then we start saying, okay, what classes do we want to offer? And when in the year do we want to offer them? And who would be willing to do that? So like we've got a couple of band directors. They're willing to help. They're not helping in the fall because it's marching season and contest season. So, but they might help in the spring. So it just, and that's kind of neat because we're drawing in. If you total up the number of volunteers, we've probably got 3 times more volunteers than we did before, but they're not all worn out because they're only doing short-term kinds of things. But music people always do the whole year because we're really Christians. All right, but like I said, it takes a village and it takes teamwork. It's a minister of music and a children's minister and a children's choir coordinator and all those volunteers working together. It is a great vision of what church ought to be, the overall church program ought to be, and it has bled over into the church, and some of the things we're doing have prompted other groups to want to, let's do that too. You know, we can memorize those scriptures with them, and we can do these ministry projects with them. So it's been a revelation and a blessing, I think. But anyway, if you are interested in that or have questions or anything, Jennifer, Janet, and myself will be glad to talk to you. So just let me know. You can email me and say, tell me more. Can I call you when we do a conference call? Or you can fly us back here. We'll spend a week with you in Texas. But it's really neat. I listed the different emphases that we did down at the bottom. Talking about mission and ministry projects on the second page. Open Hands it's on our property. It's an old house, and it's sort of like a food pantry, except they have to meet qualifications so they don't go in there every day to get food. You know what I'm talking about? But we have now, I want to say, 23 churches involved in that ministry now, so it's not just our church anymore. And it's just over the parking lot across one side street, and it's there. So we take kids over there, and they can work in the food pantry. One thing we did one Wednesday night is took the older group over there, and they put stickers on all the cans that said something like love from First Baptist, love from Open Hands Ministry, or whatever. It had, some meaning or whatever. The little things that they did, they were touching those cans that they knew were going to go to children that didn't have anything to eat. So it's kind of a neat thing for them. We do backpacks. That's a community project, so we joined with that. That's backpacks in the fall filled with school supplies that we give to the schools. Some of you may have that here. They help with the welcome bags for visitors. Any first-time visitor at our church gets a welcome bag. It has all kind of stuff, including it has a jar of jelly, because our pastor is like crazy about the University of Alabama. Have y'all heard of that place? Roll Tide. Anyway, he gets up in church and says things. There's 2 kinds of people. There's the people born in Alabama and the people that wish they had been. But anyway, we have Bama jelly is in that welcome bag. And I know some visitors are like, what is up with that? But anyway, that's in lots of little things like that. The kids help with that. We also do Operation Christmas Child, and they help pack a box, but they are the ones that put the boxes together. We do the cardboard Christmas child boxes that they have now. They're the ones that put them together, those 5th and 6th graders, and I mean, boom, they can put them together in no time. It's a couple of hundreds of those. They also are sort of the center. We have family caroling night where we gather at the church and we go out in groups, and so the kids go with adults because the kids can sing. And then I mentioned the things we make for shut-ins. Those birdhouses were gorgeous, and you can get those kits so inexpensively. Oriole Mill Trading has those kind of things, and Hobby Lobby, but it just brightens a person's day when you take that into, a sick room or a room where that's their life, and you bring in something that these children have made with their hands. And then our spring program is a dinner theater. I use that term loosely. It's really just more of a spring concert, but we do it on the stage in our fellowship hall. which they like that. They like doing it on this stage instead of doing it in the sanctuary. We do it on stage, and everybody's barbecue and pays for it to raise money for missions. Okay, a lot of talk about that. Any comments or questions about that aspect of things?
Susan,
Yeah.
we have a growing children's choir program, but it's really pretty small for the size church we are. And our Sunday school, our children's minister approached me and said, we're not doing any music in Sunday school. Now, why I hadn't thought of this, I don't know. But she said, we're not doing any music in Sunday school. Would you be willing to do a rotation? And so about 4 times during the year, the orchestra director and I have all of the kids in Sunday school, and they rotate. And it has really, I mean, this is an ulterior motive, but it helped our
But it
choir
works.
program because
Yeah.
we towed all the orff instruments and all, all the junk in there.
I love this.
And they, some of those kids had never, they didn't even know we were having choir on Sunday nights, And so it was a really good promotional thing, and we've gotten some kids started coming because of that.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. I'm going to copy that. I like that. So it's an advertisement for sure, but it's also a ministry. They're not all going to come, and they do need to have some music. And, at least you're touching some of them, but then you do gain those others. That's great. Yes, ma'am.
For your Wednesday night music program, did you exclusively use Growing in Grace, or how did you?
That's a good
I have a
question.
hard time deciding what to do when.
Okay. Because you notice now we have 4 age groups, and there's only 3 curriculums. So our preschool is 3 and 4-year-olds, and any 5s who are not in kindergarten. Georgia has just bumped back their date, so now there's going to be 5s that have to wait a year, which is a good thing, I think. I wish they'd done that for my grandchildren, but they need another year. So they use the preschool, Growing in Grace. The younger children, the K, this year it was K through 2nd, next year it's going to be K and 1st. They use the younger children curriculum. And then this year it was 3rd and 4th, next year it'll be 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's going to be a little different. I get to have them figure out how this works. We're going to use the older children, so there will be some adaptations that I have to make. And for 5th and 6th grade, it's anthem-based. I use a variety of anthems, Choristers Guild or any publisher. But I also will maybe pull a song out of older children. If I know that those 3rd and 4th graders are not going to do that song, then I'll whip it over to 5th and 6th grade, which is perfectly legal because we're not using that whole curriculum with 5th and 6th grade. And some of the activities that we do become part of a rotation, one of their little time slots. If it's a whole group and it relates to a song, like a kid page, put it up on I have a flat screen monitor, I put it up there and we do it as a group because it relates to our song. Like as they come in, we do something like that. But that's how, because you kind of anybody have combined ages where you have like cross? What do you do? Good question. Well, here's the question I always get is, what if you want to use that curriculum, which one would you use? Anybody using the curriculum with combined
That was
ages?
the question I wanted to ask.
If you have the budget to buy the 2, it's great to do, but there's no way you get all that done.
No.
I would buy the younger children one, so it hits right in the middle, and then you can enhance for the older ones, give them a little bit more, and then simplify for the younger ones. And I would highly recommend not having preschoolers with that whole combined group because it'll ruin your group. Because the older kids they don't want to come with 3-year-olds. So if you can even get somebody, a mom or a grandmom, just do singing time with the preschoolers. It's better than having them mixed in with the older kids. And if you have the money, you can buy that curriculum. But I would shoot for that middle. And yes, I have done combined age choirs. Before I came to Carrollton, I was in a church that we helped start. And so we had a small number of children. And I would have maybe high number would have been 14 from kindergarten through 5th grade. And so I know about that combined thing. And you know what else I did? I would do that, and then I would throw everything in my car and drive across town and do the same thing at the Presbyterian church. And they had issues with their numbers as well, so I had combined ages for that. So I totally understand the challenges of that, but hang in there because it's a great ministry. And there's some, you know what, I miss some of that, because what was great about that was having those 5th graders act as mentors to kindergarten and couple them when they're looking at music and having to follow the music. Such a great picture of what the church is. When I had a little bit of culture shock when I went to Carrollton, and it was the typical, you know, younger, older preschool, to get back into that, because it was a neat thing. So hang in there with those combined choirs. They are serving a great purpose and a great ministry. But I would shoot for the younger curriculum.
So
Yes, ma'am.
if you did that, if you were gonna buy just one, would you buy 2, like, kits or whatever you call them for, we've got K and 1 together, and then we've got 2nd through 5th together.
Well, I would do the younger and older then for them.
You do the younger
Yeah.
and the
Mhm.
older,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm talking about
So
for the
you're
buying
tr-
of one,
if you
like
have them
kindergarten
all,
through 5th grade.
okay.
Yeah.
So the younger one would be for the K1?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because preschool is a little too simple
Yeah.
for your first graders.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have to kind of bring your kindergartners up a little bit with it, so you might have to simplify some things, but the songs are fine. The songs will be fine. You might just be careful, you know, with any kind of harmony you want to do. You're not going to do a lot of that with first grade anyway, just use the unison songs. Yes, ma'am.
At your Christmas event, would you just sing anthems, or would you do?
We sing,
instruments?
and let's see, did I don't have a Christmas program now, but it looks a lot like our spring program. We do, when they sing for make sure I'll keep y'all past the next one. When they sing at the Hanging of the Green service, preschool does not do that. We do not put preschool in the Hanging of the Green service. That is a packed out service, and it would be total trauma for those little guys. And so I highly recommend not doing that because then they don't want to ever sing again. But for the Hanging of the Green service, they do, each of the groups either sing separately an anthem as part of the overall program, or we might combine and have maybe 2 groups sing together or whatever. But they are part of that from kindergarten through 6th grade. They're part of Hanging Greens. Then we do our Wham 3 Christmas program. It's on Wednesday night. We do that in the sanctuary because it's all decorated and it's just pretty. It fits. And we have the preschool come up first, and they sit down on the steps. We bring in the risers, and they sit on the steps. Our preschool leader is a retired elementary music teacher from Texas. Okay, so she's a fine music teacher. And this year, she hates bringing them in to do that. She says, it's not developmentally appropriate. I said, I know it, Jenny. You know it. But the parents want to see them, and we just kind of have to suck it up and do it sometimes. And she said, okay. But anyway, she had them sit on those steps, and the parents sit behind them. And they did, what was the Growing in Grace preschool thing? And it had the readings. I can't remember what song it was, but it had little readings. They'd sing a little bit, and then we'd have a little reading last year, and they'd sing a bit. Well, she had parents up there, and they had to do the readings. That was awesome, because the kids were right there between their legs, and so they couldn't go anywhere. It was great. But they sang theirs, and then we got them out of the way. They said, your parents were done with you. And then we have each of the groups come up, and they present whatever it is they're going to do. And usually we close that with one great big where they all sing the same thing. And in addition to that, we featured some of our little piano players that are studying. They always have their little Christmas recitals and stuff. So we'll feature some of those kids. We've done violin students. We've had some soloists who just seem to have a knack for that. We don't have soloists for the sake of having soloists, but we insert those to give them a chance. You know, those little piano players, nobody ever gets to hear their pieces but Grandma. So we let them do that. And honestly, we've had some excellent piano players. That's how that works, and we link it all together. It started out, when we first went there, that was not a big deal on Wednesday night. We did it in the fellowship hall, and it was everybody would get up and leave after they ate dinner, and so we didn't have an audience. When we moved it to the sanctuary, we fill up the sanctuary now. On a Wednesday night, that was just a dead time, and nothing happened, but now, they'll come to that.
Do you have handbell and shrine choirs?
We do that as rotations. We do that as rotations, and in the fall with 5th and 6th grade, and we cheat a little bit, and we'll pull in some of those 3rd or 4th graders that have had piano lessons that are a little bit better readers. They get to go in with the bigger kids, and we do hand chimes in the fall to introduce it, and then we'll do a handbell rotation in the spring with those kids who really want to. We don't make them do the handbells, but we do have them all pick up hand chimes and play. And they play in church. They don't play off tables, they play off stands. So you have 50 stands. It's like the orchestra, they come out, and they play a 30-second song, and everybody loves it. But yeah, they get the experience. And what we're hoping is that's going to grow into a hand chime group that would be at another time, or a handbell group. So it's a little tease to get them, and hopefully that would be like 5th through 8th grade. So that would give the middle school kids a chance.
I was just trying to figure out how that would fit into
Yeah,
the rotation, because like we have that, and I know we wouldn't really want to give that
Yeah.
up.
If you can make that, I think that if you really want to do a lot with handbells, it almost needs its own hour, but you could make a rotation of it where everybody experiences the chimes. Some of them don't need to experience a handbell, but everybody needs to experience the chime. I mean, really.
The chimes, I agree.
Yeah, and, I have horror stories of using chimes in public school and having them fly past my head. Woo! Okay, so I want to do a handbell. But this is a program for our spring program, and it's the same kind of thing. And we pull in orphan instruments. It's to those folks that have been there for 20 years ago. Our church, our pastor will be there 20 years this fall. 20 years ago, they had no children. The church was dying on the vine because of multiple, issues. Doesn't every church have them? And our pastor went there, and he made it his business to grow the children's ministry, which in turn grew the youth ministry. And those youth are now adults in the church, bringing their own children to church. And by the way, we are strictly a traditional worship church. We have 2 traditional worship services, and we have young couples bringing their children to our church because they want their children to experience intergenerational traditional worship. And that was another thing, that was revisioning happened. It wasn't a pastor saying this is what needed to happen. This was the church saying, this is what we feel is us. We're a downtown church. We stay downtown. And trying to reach out to the community around us. That's a whole lot about me. This is a whole lot about me. I hope I didn't give you too much of me, but this experience that I think we all are walking the same kinds of paths, that how do we get to there when we're way over here? Do we just stand here and die? One more story, and I'm going to let you go. I have a dear friend who's in a church on the fringe of Atlanta. If you know anything about Atlanta, it started out, I remember when Interstate 85 went through Atlanta. It was a 2-lane road when I was in high school. And now if you've ever been there, horrible. But anyway, the sprawl began. So it began to grow out like this. So you had these big suburbs grow up. And then they moved out of those and moved farther out. And then those died and they moved out. This happens in all the metropolitan areas. Well, it's right near the airport. It's a little church that back in the day was in the middle of tons of people. It was a thriving church. Well, it's like 4 sprawls back now. It's just a dying little church. And they didn't move out. There was no place to go. There was nobody left. The only thing left was mostly elderly people who didn't want to go because they'd been in that church their entire lives. So they hired a pastor who was a retired minister of music, smart job, and he hired a minister of music, a friend of his, who became a minister of music. And Ken is an awesome, has a heart for children's music. And he loves doing fine children's choral music as well. So he kept having children's choir because he was older and God gave he and his wife twins. Okay, surprise! And so he wanted his children to have a children's choir. So he kept, and then there were those few children that were left. So he got down to the last 4. And they would bring in the music camp and they would stand up at the talent show and sing a beautiful choral anthem with sign language or something. It was beautiful, and there were head voices and everything. And, you know, my heart broke because Ken didn't have a choir anymore. This summer, he brought, his church came to camp, and he brought 12 children. 11 of them are Hispanic. They finally realized we don't have a choir anymore. We got a choir in our community, and so they began to pull in, and they're ministering to this Hispanic community that's grown up all around their church. And there was this choir of 12, probably it just made me want to weep. And right in the middle of it, I don't know where she came from, but it was this little blonde-headed girl right in the middle of it. Here's all these Hispanic children, and they are singing with beautiful vowels and the phrasing and the head voices. This wonderful choral example that the rest of us were going, oh, I need to come and work some more. But what did he do? He bloomed, you know, where he planted, and he got some help with somebody that spoke Spanish and then talked to these parents so that they would let them bring their kids to the church. And now those families are in the church, and that dying church is now a growing church. So you kind of have to take what God offers, and it might be a combined choir. We've got 30 kids, you know, in 5th grade, and that's your choir. And then next year you won't have a choir because they're going to use whatever it is that you have to accept it and see how can I make this happen. So go and be fruitful and bloom where you're planted and make lemonade and all those things. And totally God bless you in all that you do. If you have any questions about our program or anything that was on there that I didn't get to. That rhythm chart at the bottom is the one that we're going to do this year. We're going to actually do the Choosing God's Way. It's going to be our annual thing for this coming up year. And so I wrote a little the scripture. Please do this though. If you write scriptures for them to memorize and you want to do the rhythm, include the scripture reference, the book and the chapter and the verse, so that when your children grow up, they won't be like me and say, well, I know it's in there somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I know it. But I'm going to start it and make it rhythmic as well. The little things in parentheses where it says, be still, that's not to echo. That you can put the sign language for be still on those 2 beats, or you can put a little body percussion. It's going to be a quiet body percussion because it's be still, so not slap, slap, or stomp, stomp like some of them are. And then notice it's a great opportunity for introducing dynamics because the dynamics are included, so you can use that if you want. Okay, that's it. And I ran